are 1% Native American.
Oh, tight.
1%.
That's still 1%.
14% European, and they break down the groupings. So,
14%.
So 4% Scandinavian, 6% from Great Britain. There's another additional 4 or 5% from Ireland. That makes up this 14% European piece. But the 85%, which is huge, 28% being the largest block, comes from Ghana and Ivory Coast, and they're neighbors. So it's probably, more than likely, it is probably a coastal tribe, because when you look at the map on the website, it's right where the two connect, and it's right on the coast. And then 25% is the Cameroon and Congo connection. And then there's a solid 14% Nigerian.
Okay.
Size.
Okay, yeah. No, seriously.
Okay.
Seriously. The tall.
So what else does Ancestry.com do? It also ties you into people who've also taken this particular test. Okay? So,
and is that where?
And so it gave me all these hits of second cousins, all right, who were on Ancestry.com, and they were all located. 99% of them were all located in Mississippi, in little towns around areas like Jackson, Mississippi, Lawrence, Mississippi, and coincidentally, when I gave the registry, the GS Adoptions Registry, the information of Ancestry, they were able to find the last name Hill. And Lawrence, Mississippi is where Hill originated from. Who Hill is my biological mother. That was her last name, but we still didn't know her first name. So the following day, after getting this information, I said, Mom, you remember anything else that rings a bell regarding when I was little and the family, the biological family? And she says, well, the name Shay rings a bell. And I already knew Marvin was my biological name. So I had been running with Marvin Hill for a while, and I was off.
Marvin
okay?
Shay,
But it was Marvin Shay.
So your other name was Marvin Shay.
Marvin Shay. My real biological name was Marvin Shay.
Crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. You look like a Marvin.
So anyway, so I gave them that information, the registry, and on Thursday a plethora of emails started coming back. A plethora of emails, and they had connected.
So
they took my date of birth, which they already had because I had been working with them for a while, and they took my adopted name. They took my adopted mother's information, and they were able to do what's called triangulation and figure out and pinpoint this woman named Rena Mae Shay as my biological mother during the year of 1967. And there were only 3 people born in LA County, March 31st, 1967.
Okay.
2 of them were girls and 1 boy. And it was like bingo. And then the next thing you know, I get this other email with all these hits of all these other people with the last name Shay tied to this biological mother. And then they started sending me Facebook profiles of these individuals.
That's crazy.
Do they look like you?
I'm going to show you pictures now. And
they got his nose.
yeah, and so keep in mind, they have all seen pictures of you guys already, because I've already talked to, not half, but I've talked to 4 of my siblings so far since yesterday. So how this happened, how this all manifested was, when they sent me the information, the first profile that I found on Facebook was of Lily Shay. So instead of friending her like people do on Facebook, I just inboxed her and I says, "Do you have a mom with the last name of Hill?" She waited almost a full day before she responded back, and she responded back a little bit guarded. I could totally feel the energy. She just said yes, and I says, "I believe that I am your long lost little brother, Marvin Shay." And it was, you could totally tell, like, she probably dropped the phone, and because I didn't hear back from her. And then I had, at the same time, I had inboxed her brother, who's Alan Shay. So Alan Shay, he has the same sort of side profile as I do, and forehead, but he looks a little bit different here. But then he has your nose, like, or you have his nose because he's older. So it kind of like, so I inboxed him, and then instead of hearing back from Lily first, I heard back from him first.
Wait, so
and he says, he inboxes me, and I'll share with you guys all the messages and stuff. He goes, "We have been looking for you for years. This is my phone number. Call me right now. This is your big brother," And you could totally feel the warmth from his message. So I called him immediately. This was around 10 o'clock yesterday morning. And I ended up talking to him, and I was at the convention for our fraternity's districts, and I didn't attend any of the meetings because this was way more important. I ended up actually talking to him on the phone for like almost 5 hours.
Oh,
so do they all know each other?
Yeah. So here's the deal. So the first,
You're the only one?
I was the only one, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, yeah.
So there's 13, but they range in age from Georgia was the firstborn. She's passed away. She had to be, if she were still living, she would probably be maybe 65, 67 years of age. Okay? Yeah. And Andre thought he was the baby of the group. He's 50. Okay? Or he's 49, he'll be 50 in November. And then, of course, when I talked to him today, he was just like, "I'm no longer the baby," Yeah. So it was hilarious. We had a hilarious time on the phone. When in 1967, my biological mom basically was on her own because her husband had passed away, which was the father of the first 5 or 6 of the siblings. Okay, the older group, and they're clusters, so they're broken up into 3 clusters. So you had Georgia, Betty, Edna, Ray, and Ron as the first cluster because they were maybe 2-3 years apart from each other in age. Okay, so that's the first cluster. Then the second cluster was Lily, Alan, Arthur, and Andre, and Melody.
Are these all from the same parents?
No. So the first cluster is from the same parents. Then the second cluster of kids is from a father by the last name of Mack, M-A-C-K. But they were never married. So my biological mom kept her married name of Shay, and since Mack was only around for a little while, the kids all inherited just Shay as the last name. And then the third cluster would have been myself, Andre, and 1 or 2 of the girls. I want to say Melody or Barbara. So we made up the third cluster, but since the last cluster of kids were so close together, it was a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and then I came. And then Georgia and Betty came back home, according to one of the siblings, because they needed a place to be, and they had kids already. It was more pressure on the household because you still had 9 or 10 minors who weren't grown yet. They were still all relying on their moms. So when I came around, social services had gotten involved, and they were like, "Well, look, either we're going to take all the kids and put them in orphanages and say that you are unfit mother, or you need to allow this child to have a different life. And those were the kinds of decisions that were made.
So you're the only one?
Yeah, I was the only one.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and what made it probably more of a permanent decision too was the fact that I wasn't. I was fathered by a different father. Okay, and his name, from what I've been told today, Eugene or Gene. It's either Gene Caldwell or Gene Robertson. So we're still trying to sort that out. So so that's the story. And so when I talk to Alan, and I've actually been talking to Alan probably the most. He's a city commissioner of Pasadena. He ran for mayor. So I'm going to show you guys some pictures of all of these folks. And they actually own a small little cafe restaurant in Pasadena.
Hey, that's dope that everybody's doing well.
That he told me when she died, the day that she died a millionaire, because she had worked for 40-something years, taking care of her kids and working at this little cafe house, all the while. And now one of the siblings has taken over that, and it's still running, and it's in Pasadena. It's called the Little Red Hen. So I was just like blown away by all this stuff, and I mean, there's so much information. So feel free to ask questions. I've talked to, like I said, I've talked to 4 out of the 11 remaining, so I still have another 7 siblings to talk to. So this is all very fresh.
Yes.
Yeah, this is all very fresh, and
so you talk to the youngest. You talk to the next.
I talked to my brother, who's the next above me, and I've talked to my middle brother, who is 57, and he's kind of like Herbert, Uncle Herbert. He's like the historian. He tells a lot of the rich history of the family. He can go back to like 1866, and he's very, very endowed in that kind of knowledge. So, he's been really sort of connecting all the dots for me with what happened with my biological mother and with all the siblings as well.
That's gotta feel pretty good though, because I mean, it's pretty much been your whole life, and you're finally finding all your questions.
Yeah, it's really it's almost surreal. It's very euphoric the feeling.
Imagine when you meet them in person.
Man.
Right. Well, and they're totally
Where do they live?
They have
excited
a show
and want to see
about
you
this.
guys too. So this is 7 out of the 11 that are here in this picture. Keep in mind, I'm the baby.